recording. All right, so right now we have about 17 people, and again, thank you so much for attending. This is about special services, which we are no longer calling new. In fact, I'm going to refer to the old special services as classic, and special services, the new one, just as special services. Today we have mostly intervention specialists. Of the 30 people who signed up, 12 of you are intervention specialists, and that's the role that I'm going to focus on today. People who have a caseload with students that they are responsible for, and we'll talk about some of the other scenarios. I know we have a school psychologist possibly in the mix, a counselor, EMIS people, admin assistants for special services or special education. All of you might have slightly different roles, but you're still going to want to know the basics of what a case manager does. So that's what we're going to focus on today. I also know, at least from the list of people that I have today, we have quite a few from CTEC. So CTEC people, I've got you covered because I really want to talk about how you're going to access documents from the home school as students are transitioning or being shared with you. That'll be later since it doesn't really necessarily apply to everyone. Okay, again, my name is Susan. I had a little survey up and we have now 18 people in. I'm gonna go ahead and end this poll just so we can share some results here. So we have, most of you have not seen it at all. Some of you have attended a training. Some of you have seen a brief demonstration. Okay, that's good for me to know because it helps me to just kind of make sure I'm not repeating things you may have seen, but it sounds like people want to know it from the ground floor, everything you need to know. Feel free to let me know if there is something you need me to repeat, you need me to slow down, you need me to show you something again. Now, here's the bonus. If you pay attention for the whole 2 hours, okay, I'm just kidding you. If you want to wait until the very end, I'm going to share a way for you to log in and play with the system before you actually have it in your school. Now, Annie, I'm going to call on you for a second. Is anyone here already in the system? I don't think so, right? CTEC, Licking Heights?
No.
Okay.
No,
all right. So they will want a play ID if they'd like to play with it. So
I'm sorry, Lakewood is, but
okay.
I would have to give Phil a user. And,
okay. So absolutely, I will share some pretend IDs with you. In fact, everything you're going to see today is in our demo system, and everything is fake. So lots of students in here, but I'm not showing you any real data at all. I'm going to launch one more poll because I need to know one more thing about you. If you are currently using Special Services Classic, I'd like to know your comfort level is, and so feel free to put that in because that's going to help me as well to kind of compare and contrast and point out what is hopefully better in the new system for you. All right, that's looking good. I'm going to let that one run for a little bit while I keep on going. All right, so there are two links in the slides, and you're going to find them in a couple different places. One of those, the top link you see there, is where you're going to see all of our very short training videos on everything I'm going to talk about today, including more than what I'm going to talk about today. They're divided by topic, and you can find those at the link at the top. Also at that link at the top, you will find instructional sheets. Instead of a 50, 60, 70, 100-page manual, we have divided each of the topics into instructional sheets that are currently PDFs that you can look at online, or you can, of course, print them for yourself. I caution you that as changes are made, you want to go back to the original place that we have these posted. And that kind of looks like this right now. Speaking of which, you can always get it by clicking on the question mark in the upper right-hand corner of the system. What you will find there are 4 tabs. And right now, if you go to the Home tab, you will not see the new special services. We're waiting until version 20, which usually comes out in June, so that when you come back to school in August, you will have access to that. So first of all, we do have the training tab. We have administrative videos and instructional sheets, and down at the bottom we have case manager, service provider, and teacher. Now, one thing I'm going to show you today are banks. And so what I just did is Control F on my keyboard to find the word banks in here, because there are a few places where you will see banks related to, and we probably should put bank items. I'll just put bank. And then you can see the different videos and instructional sheets that have to do with banks. I'm going to show it to you today, But if you want to actually see it in practice and practice with it and look at it, you can come to this tab and do a little control find to find that information. YouTube videos and instructional sheets. Today, drum roll please, we are actually releasing 19.6, which LACA is getting ready to put onto your live system. And that's what I'm going to be demonstrating to you. So what I like to tell people is, because we are constantly making changes to the program and updating it based on your requests, you will find that there are release notes under the release training, under the release web help tab, and you can go through those to see what's new. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some things that might be coming down the road, but I really want to focus on what's in the program now so that you actually see what is live, what is working, what you will see next year. So just wanted to make sure we saw all of that. And I'm just going to pop this poll. We ended this poll. Let's see, we are at 24 people now. So those of you who joined us late, hopefully you got an email with a ton of links in it that will help you. And just so we're all aware, it looks like many of you are very comfortable with Classic, and a few of you have different skill levels or different comfort levels when it comes to Classic. Okay, just wanted to know that so I can make some comparisons. All right, so again, training information, resources on this link right now. Next school year, it'll be located at our regular webhelp.progressbook.com. So lots of good things for you to look at, even starting today. Annie is on the chat. So again, any questions you have, she will either stop me. You are welcome to unmute your mic. We are going to be really casual today, and hopefully we will get you everything that you need. Today, we are going to talk about security briefly, because most of you are going to have nothing to do with security. But I want you to have an understanding of what a case manager can do in the system. And you might see whether you see that you need something else, or perhaps you see that your district is going to require something else. I want you to just be aware of the possibilities. We'll do all the navigating in special services. When you click something, where does it go? What does it mean? How does it work? So we'll do that. We're going to find students. Everyone who is a case manager or a service provider using the roles that we have created, you can find any student and you can look at any document. So I'm going to stress that to you. Your district might decide to do something different, but what I'm going to show you today is what we have in the system as a preset role. We will create, update, and complete documents. We're going to start with the IEP and see how much time we have. Don't worry, I'm not going to fill out the whole IEP. I am not an intervention specialist, so I am not here to tell you how to do your job. I am here to help make your life easier, I hope, by showing you what happens when you click in different areas. We'll understand the dynamic features. I'm going to just kind of tell you that one of my favorites is the alternate assessments. For those of you familiar with Classic, you used to have to go outside of the system, grab that criteria sheet, scan it somewhere, bring it back into the system. Not anymore, it's there. So I'm going to show you that. We'll talk about the dashboard and student documents. I'm going to tell you that our developers have put in multiple ways to do the same thing. And I find it a little confusing sometimes, but I think the more you use the system, the more you're going to find the way it works best for you. So today I'll show you everything I possibly can, and then you can decide what works best for you for your workflow. Bonus today, like I said, CTEC, I am ready to show you document import. That'll be towards the very end so that we make sure you see how that works and what needs to be done by an administrator. Okay, so this is a screen that you're not actually going to see. This is a security screen in student information, but I wanted to use it to demonstrate to you how things can be personalized for your district, and those are district decisions. So the first thing I want you to know is that as a case manager, you can assign yourself. Students can be assigned to your caseload by you. Even service providers, so I think I had an occupational therapist and maybe a couple other service providers on the call, you also can assign students to yourself. So we're not waiting for an integration with Gradebook. We're not waiting for something else to happen. If your school does self-assign, you'll be able to do that, and I will demo it. If your school decides no, an administrator is going to assign students to you, then your screen is going to look almost exactly the same. So I'll show you what that would be like. I'll stop and make sure you see the difference. You will be able to see your students' documents on the dashboard and the students' documents screen. So a word to those of you who are case managers or service providers, that's where you're going to see all the documents for your students, whether they're completed, whether they are open. Even there's a place for archived ones that are over 3 years old. So you'll be able to see them for your students, whether they were your students now, or if, I'm sorry, documents for your students even from the past. So you'll be able to see those things. If you are an administrator, you see documents for the entire district. So that's one of the differences. Today, we're going to be able to view all completed documents for any student. And we are going to be able to view, create, update, delete, and complete documents for all students. I know that seems a little crazy. We've opened up the security here. And again, your school district will be making decisions for you, but this is what I'm going to show you based on what we have today. And we'll be able to search for all students. So these are the things we're going to do today based on a case manager role. And in case you are thinking, oh, that doesn't quite work for me, number one, there's a lot more information on Web Help that explains how to set up security. But just to give you a quick peek, if you are a service provider, you're going to be able to self-assign across the district if the district allows you to do that. Your general education teachers, if they get that role, they'll be able to view documents for their students. Case managers, just think of it as one case manager per student. So I'm going to pause for a second and just say this before I get into other things. I have little Johnny in my class. I'm the intervention specialist working for him. We're working with him. I'm his case manager. He is on my caseload. But I have a partner teacher, an intervention specialist, or I have many service providers who need access to Johnny's documents. They will be able to have that access. The only difference is I will be listed as the case manager. So I'm going to point that out when we get to that screen. So this is just for reference. No one needs to memorize it. I just want to make sure you knew there are other possibilities. Okay, so let's start by taking the tour of what special services looks like. And I'm a visual person, so I start with some screenshots here that you can refer to at any time. We're going to start by talking about that little menu. Remember the hamburger menu in the old system, and you would click it and there'd be a drop down? Doesn't quite work that way now. That hamburger menu is just going to show or hide this blue area on your screen. So you can either hide it or show it just by clicking on the hamburger menu. The next thing we see is our lovely little graduation cap, and that is a shortcut to the dashboard. Now, I rarely use that. And I want to tell you really why is because it really refreshes the whole system, and it kind of like lags a little bit because you're refreshing the whole page. So I don't really like to use it. I'll show you another way to get to the dashboard. But if you are ever lost in the system and you want to return to your starting screen, that is a quick way to just click on it and just let it run its refresh and you'll be there. On the far right-hand side, we do have a switch for districts. Now, this is completely dependent on your district, and I'm just going to tell you that most of us will only have one district we're working in, obviously. But for those of you who serve more than one district, you may either have one login with this district switcher, or you might have multiple logins because remember, the district has control over this data. So just keep that in mind. It's a possible use, but it depends on the district decision. Also in the upper right-hand corner, we have our standard progress book icons from left to right. Your account icon where you can log off, especially if you are sharing computers. There's a notification icon. Right now, we do not have notifications at this time in for special services, but if they are working on some things like, you know, a document is due or something has happened that you may want to know about in special services, when that is put into place, there would be, when that is put into place and your district has enabled it, you would see a little red dot here if you had any notifications. Most of us are not going to use the reporting feature because that is another district setting, but that does take you to what's called the Analytics Hub in Student Information. So if you are the administrative assistant and you do EMIS things, that's probably going to be important to you, but not necessarily for all of the intervention specialists. And we already said we have our web help. So those are some things we're going to look at in just a little bit. I also want to point out to you, again, before we get into the system, on that left-hand side is the menu. The first thing you're going to see is the word special services, and this is there's a little triangle underneath my bracket here where you can switch between applications. So it would be, I need to get to gradebook, I need to get to data map, I need to get to student information. That's where you're going to do that. And then we're going to talk about each of these 3 items because when I first started training on this, I really had to figure out what is the difference? How am I going to use these when I am working in the system? So the first is the dashboard. As I said, that's your starting screen, and it's an overview of your students' documents. We have some widgets there that we are going to demonstrate and show you everything, and you can customize your views. So this is probably one of my favorite parts right over here, the filter and the gear. Remember in the old system when you would log in and there was this task something or other on the left-hand side that you had to set every time you went in? Which documents do I want to see on my task queue? How many days ago? When are they due? All those things. You can set it and forget it. So you get the opportunity now to save it, and it will not change until you change it. So I'm happy about that change. Let's go to the next thing. Student documents screen, we're going to look at it. It looks really similar to the dashboard, but it doesn't have the widgets across the top. Instead, you'll find a recycle bin. And when we say recycle bin in this system, we are talking about the ability to soft delete. Depending on your security, you will be able to delete an entire document, and we'll talk about sections later, an entire document, and it will go to the recycle bin. I'm going to talk more about it when we get there, but this is also a change in our system. You can bring it back. That's why we call it a recycle bin. We'll talk about that one. You can also customize with different views from your dashboard and save that view for you. So it's much more related to how you work and what your workflow is. And the second thing we're going to look at is the My Student screen. This is where you will specifically see your caseload and everyone who serves those students. If you're a service provider, you'll see all of the students that you serve. If you're a general education teacher, your general education teachers will see the students listed there who have special services documents. They're still going to be able to access from gradebook, but it will take them to the My Students screen where they can see those documents. Okay, let's go ahead and go, well, we'll do one more of these before we go. So one more thing I want to talk about before we get into the system, and that's searching for students. The kind of unusual thing about this is that there are 2 places to search for students. We've got one on the left-hand side and one on the right-hand side. I'm almost going to just tell you to ignore this one. Ignore it, and I'll show you why in a little bit. But this one up in the upper right-hand corner will always be there. So this is your go-to, and yes, we're going to search for students, and I'm going to show you some cool things that they added to the system. So let me go in. I'm already logged in, and it's going to be the same way you always log in, and you'll choose the special services icon so that you can get to this screen. When you start next year, or even if you were to start now, midsummer, whenever your district decides to go to the system, it's a little scary at first because this is what you're going to see. Nothing. If I go to student documents, nothing. If I go to My Students, nothing. That's okay because everything is in there. We just need to connect you to your students. So I'm going to make that happen in just a little bit. Let's go over some of those things I was showing you. So here's that here is the application switcher that will take you to the different applications. Here's that lovely little hamburger menu that just opens and closes that side. That's all it does. Of course, we said this will take you back here to the dashboard. And then the icons on the side are available to you, including that district switcher if your schools choose to use it. You'll notice that I have a name over here because that's my recent search. So if I continue to search for students over here, let me back up a second. It's the first 2 letters of the first or last name. So that's the least amount that you have to have in there, the first 2 letters of the first or last name. And of course, you can continue to type until you narrow it down. Anytime you click on a student name, no matter where it is in the system, it's going to take you to what's called their student profile. well, let's talk about it while we're here. Student profile. Anytime, if I click on Garrett Brown's over here, it's gonna take me to his student profile. I click on Simone's, it's taking me to hers. I'm gonna show you a couple other places where you can click on their names. Let's take a moment to talk about these 3 tabs listed on the right-hand side: personal, contacts, and special education. No overnight integration. The personal tab and the contacts tab comes directly from student information. Let me just pause to remind all of you that we, as intervention specialists, as people working in special services, will not be changing the information on these 2 tabs. That's because it's pulling from student information. So if you're talking to a parent and they're saying, that's not my phone number, whatever the process is in your district, that's who you need to talk to change the phone number in student information. So then it will come over here live. Once they change it in student information, it will come to special services. So these 2 tabs are certainly important, but they are just informational for those of us in special services who have access to this. Let's go to the tab that's most important, and that would be special education. And while we're looking at that tab, I want to point out 3 things. First of all, I can create a new document right from here. So I'm really thinking about, actually anyone, but speaking to school psychologists, school counselors, even service providers, yes, intervention specialists. If you go ahead and start to search for a student up here, which is always going to be there, once you find that student and click on them, you can go to that special education tab and click on new document. There are, okay, I was going to exaggerate, but I will tell you there are 4 other places to create a new document. This is just one place that makes it relatively easy to search and get to creating a new document almost immediately, okay? Let's go back to my other student. And did you notice as I was searching for students, I get a picture up here, if I had pictures in this system, grade, their status, and then their ID. So this search is a little nicer because it gives you more information. In fact, in this system, we can also search by number. And that's really helpful if you're trying to be very accurate. I have one district that has a zillion Michael Browns. And so they said, wow, we need this. We need the number so we get the exact student we need. So number or actual letters. Oops, sorry. Let's go back to Simone because she had some good information here. All right, so new document. I'm going to scroll down and you'll notice there are a couple links. We're going to get to this one in just a second, but let's take a peek at the fact that we have open documents listed here. We have completed documents and we have something called in review. Now, here's where I'm going to pause and say to you, in review is something that's coming out in 19.6. It has to do with what we call the collaboration portal. I do not want to go into detail on this because I could talk about it forever, but it is a way to send documents via email for signatures. So when we did this training with LACA in March, a gentleman said to us, oh, we're using Zoom for that. And that's amazing. And we did pass that on to other users. But now we do have it in our system that you can actually email it. So I'll point out where documentation is on that, but I just wanted you to know that's what in review means. So any of the documents that you see with a link, you can go ahead and click on them. If I click on a link down here, it's going to take me to the PDF because those are completed. If I click on the link here, it's going to allow me to continue to work on it because it's an open document. One more thing in here for everyone is the IEP summary. I want to look at one student's IEP summary. This is the easiest way to do it. Put their name in, click on Special Education tab, and then click on the link for the most recent completed IEP summary, okay? It looks very similar to what we had in the system before. I'm going to scroll down a little bit and you will see their goals. If they had more goals and more objectives, they would all be listed there, the specially designed services, and of course the statewide and district testing. So this is what the IEP summary looks like. There is a place to print, and I'm going to go there for right now because printing is pretty important in here. This is only printing one document, but I'm going to say this to all of you. Forget what you knew about printing in the other system, in the classic system. All the printing here is going to go through your browser, and your options are going to be up here. So when we get to the part where we can do a draft watermark, I'll show you where that is. I want to point out that when I click on print, I'm going to be using my printer here in my home. In fact, I would have to set that up so that it says printer. And then I want you to know that there is a place to, I'm using Chrome, which is the one we're supposed to use. I know this works with other browsers, but I would suggest Chrome. There is a place here to customize what you need to customize for your printer. And also there's a place to customize how many pages you're going to print. So that would be whether I'm printing it, or even better, saving it as a PDF. I can do that as well here and save, you know, based on the pages or whatever it may be. So I'll show that again to you when we look at an IEP, but let me cancel that. The print preview is really important because it's not just going to show you what it looks like from that PDF standpoint, but you can create the PDF if you want to, and you can obviously print it if you want to. Let's exit the preview. And remember, I was on the student profile. I had clicked on the IEP summary, but now I want to get back to what else was here. This X is just going to close the IEP summary. So when I click on that, it just goes back to what it was before for the profile. You're going to find that if an X means delete, it's going to say to you, are you sure you want to delete it? So that one was just closing that IEP summary. Okay, so let's go back to our dashboard. And I think we got everything we wanted. Okay, so let me pause and make sure we're okay as I just remind you that we were looking at the student profile, place for new document, place for the summary, and that's all in the special education tab. Okay, this is like special services light. This is the easy stuff. So hopefully we're okay, but if you have questions about any of that, let me pause for a second and see. All right, we look okay. Let's keep going. I'm going to go to the next slide for a second. I am going to peek over here just real quick. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide and just talk about caseloads. So we're going to go to the My Students screen in just a second, and we're going to use this button that says Assign Students. If your school says you will not be self-assigning, then your screen is going to look at like this as soon as your administrator puts the information into the system, assigns students to you. If you are self-assigning, then your screen is going to look like this. It's going to be blank. So let me just point out a couple things, or just say a few things. This is where you're going to self-assign. Even if your school says you are not going to self-assign, you as a case manager can assign service providers. I'll demonstrate that. If you are a service provider and you don't actually have a caseload because you are not in charge of the actual completion of all the IEP or whatever it may be, you're going to do a 504, or you're going to add information, or you need to see information, you're still going to be able to assign students to yourself. And I know you might call it a caseload, and that's fine because that's what it's called, but we're going to talk about both those scenarios, case manager versus service provider. It's still going to work the same way. All right, let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead and click on Assign Students and take a look at this screen because I have a lot of options. My first option is to see that my name is listed in the Choose a Provider section. And so with that Choose a Provider section up here at the top, I can see that I am playing the role of John Intervention. I know I picked a guy instead of a girl today, but that's okay. This is me, and I say to myself, you know what? I got to get my 15, 16, however many kids I have on my caseload. If you have more, I'm sorry. I'm going to click on Case Manager, and it turns green, and I will click on Students. Now, I know my list. Maybe it's been handed to me in a piece of paper. Maybe it was given to me via email. However you get your list of students, now you're just going to start searching for them. So I'm going to start by getting my little friend Garrett Brown is going to be our child today. Now, I started to search. Names are coming up. I click on the plus, and it's going to go to this column over here. Notice that the X just means I can remove. So pretty simple there. Add it or remove it. Now, once a student is on someone's caseload, like Garrett Brown is now on my caseload as a case manager, he will not show up for any other case managers. He's going to be with me. So we'll talk about how to change that if somebody makes a mistake. I'm at a couple more here just because I can, but let's also we'll get Simone Palmer, and we are also going to get a couple other students who might have, I don't think he has documents. Okay, so I'm gonna do, let's do Armstrong too. All right, now I can keep adding students. So, you know, your school district might do something with, you know, you're not actually an intervention specialist, but they want these students to be connected to you. So you can add as many as you need to. I'm gonna stick with what we have here, and I'm gonna go ahead and click on assign. Now watch what's gonna happen, because my screen that was blank is now gonna populate with all of that student information. So as soon as I connect a student to myself by clicking on assign students, I will see everything here on the My Students screen. And if you notice on that left-hand side, there's no longer a search box. That's why I said forget it. Let's not even use it. But now it has a list of my students. So no matter where I am in the system, I can easily click on any of these students and get right back to their student profile if I need to. So that's kind of a nice little feature. I'm going to go back to the My Students screen, and let's take a look at this right now. On the My Students screen, again, click on the name, student profile. Of course, we've got the ID, we've got the code if it's in the system, and then we have the fact that I am the case manager. So notice all of the places where I am the case manager. Notice also that there's a couple other people who already have access to these students. My occupational therapist already has access to Mark Armstrong. My friend, another intervention specialist who's working with me, is listed as other for this student. Maybe we say, no, we're gonna use this one, Mary Smiles. So maybe we say, hey, Mary, you're really not supposed to have access to Simone Palmer. Mary can remove herself from her student's document screen, or my student screen, sorry, my student screen. But I can too. I can go ahead and click on her, and it's gonna say, are you sure? Are you really sure that Mary Smiles is not gonna work with Simone Palmer? We're gonna say, yep, remove her. And then she's no longer listed. Let's say I made a mistake. I'm not supposed to be working with Brownson Howell, somebody else is. And I say, oop, I better take myself off. Okay, I've removed. So our X's are gonna remove. And then of course, well, I don't have it set up in my system, but if you click on the name, you're supposed to be able to email the person directly. That's gonna depend on settings that you have set up. So we'll see if that works when you use the system or not. I can't do it myself. Documents are here, so I can quickly go ahead and click on any of the documents and look at them. And of course, I have this information about due date, status, and progress. Okay, let's keep going here though. I've assigned students to myself, but now I need to also, not just be a case manager, I need to work with other students. So let me keep my name in context, so I'm still here. I'm gonna choose other. Obviously, I can choose any of these options. Well, we're going to click on other and students, and I am going to just randomly choose, let's choose some of the Smith children. When I choose the Smith children, you're going to see that I am listed as other. I am not listed as case manager, I'm listed as other. So someone else can choose them to put them on the caseload, their caseload, as case manager if they need to. Notice also, Mary Smiles does not have an X here, but she did up here. So what's the difference? Here, I am not a case manager. I am not in charge of this child. I am not the end all be all in this child's life. Well, maybe I am. But here, so I can't get rid of Mary Smiles. She could take herself off of this. If there was a case manager, the case manager could remove Mary Smiles. I can remove Mary Smiles because I am the case manager for Chanel, okay? All right, we're gonna do one more thing with this assigned students. Your district has said, yes, all of the intervention specialists are going to choose their students, but the service providers are not. Well, how do we get access to our service providers as case managers? So this is just one option that we can talk about. I can go ahead and get my name out of context by clicking on the X. So now I'm going to search for someone, and I'll pick someone different today. Oh my gosh, let's pick this one. Okay, so I start searching for staff in my school by typing their name, just like we did for students. And I can select that person. And now you're going to notice I'm the case manager, but I cannot assign other people as case managers. That's not my job. I cannot do that. But I can assign them to be other roles for my students. And if any of these other roles, yes, only one at a time. So let's just stick with occupational therapy. Paul Masters is going to provide occupational therapy for some or all of my students. When I click on students, I can only assign the students in my caseload. So I can't give him access to anybody else, but students in my caseload. Okay. And now you're going to see, oh, now we got 2 occupational therapists. Wow, that's a student who has a lot of help. Of course, we can X them out if we need to. Okay, so one more word about this. If you are a service provider, your name will be in context. This will be crossed off, but you can still assign yourself as one of these other services. All right, let's pause there for a second and see if we have questions about assigning caseloads. Okay, and I'm going to mention one more thing, and that is simply if you are a school psychologist, a school counselor, someone who has an administrative kind of role, that is not, what we just did is not how you will see students. You would want to use the search, or you might possibly have access to them on the dashboard as well. So it would be a little different for other people with other roles. All right, we're looking okay. I'm going to check to make sure I still see Annie there, so we're good. Because thank you, Annie. All right, we're ready. How do I create, update, and complete documents? That is the next thing we are going to talk about. And the first thing I want you to see is the really simple way we create a new document. When you click Create New Document or Add New Document, the button is in a lot of places, and I will show that to you. A little bit different from the last system, just slightly different, is the fact that you will have the document listed in one field, and then you will select the type. So instead of scrolling through a whole list of documents, all those different progress reports, all those different ETRs, all those different IEPs, it's going to be narrowed down for you based on what you choose in this first one. And for those of you with the information or needing the copy from documents, if I have an IEP, whether it's completed or open, I can select that document for a student and create my progress report. I can select the IEP from last year and copy it to make my new IEP and just make adjustments. So this is going to be when you create the document, don't forget to select the document you'd like to copy from if that's an option. All right, so let's go back in and look at this. Remember I said we can click on a student's name and of course get to the new document right here. If I do that through the student profile, that student's name is already going to be in context. And if you notice, my screen behind me changed, but don't worry about that. It's still going to take you to the same place because we're starting to create a document. I want to show you that you don't have to do that many clicks to get there. If you were on, oh, and here we go. We're going to talk about the dashboard later, but remember it was empty. Now it's got some students, yay, because I have a caseload. All right, if you were coming in new, you already have your caseload, so you do see things here, but you want to create a new document. There's a new document button here on the dashboard. There's a new document link on the widget called Recently Created Documents. There's a new document button on your student document screen. So lots of places to locate this blue button. When you click it on any of those places, you have to search for the student, which obviously is not a big deal, but you know, again, up to you what your flow is going to be. So our child of the day is Garrett Brown. Garrett Brown is going to get an IEP, and so I want to show you, let's go here first. I have my choices of amended, review, and transfer, but for those of you who do other things, for instance, if you're doing an ETR, then I have my initial, reevaluation, and transfer ETR. If you're doing a 504, we're going to focus on the plan, but you do have the other choices here. Those are not broken out the same way, but you have these choices here as well. And I'm going to point out, although we're going to try to do this later, the progress report. We have streamlined progress reports. And so these are the options that you have now. The 6B, the 6A, which is the one we're going to normally use, the combination of transition and goals objectives, and then the WEP PR. So it just depends on what you choose up here, what will populate down here. I'm going to go with initial because it doesn't really matter. I can go ahead and change the name here if I want to. School year, grade going to populate. Obviously, those of you who deal with different school years, different grade levels, you can still change that if you have to. Now let's pause to take a moment to talk about the due date. The due date, or our calendar picker here, has some options. I clicked on this little dot to get today's date because that's the way I like to do it. But of course, if you click on the down arrow, you can see that I can make that due date what I need to. Due dates are still arbitrary, which means you as the user are choosing them. There's another date we're going to talk about in a little bit, but for this purpose, the due date is up to you. If your school district has a policy, please follow that policy. For our intents and purposes, I'm just going to pick today, but you can see that I can choose other dates as well. 30 days out, sure, if I need to, that's what I can do. All right, that was the select copy from, which we're not going to do. Mark as priority, you know what that is. It's the little red exclamation mark that is going to appear over here on your dashboard and a couple other places to kind of just alert you as the user that that's when you are keeping an eye on. Let's create. And here we are. Now, I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to first go ahead and contract and hide that menu. You saw that there was a green message that said document ready or document saved. I kind of never read those, but the green ones come up to kind of tell you, yes, whatever action you just did, it took. We're going to look up here. See how there's nothing here in this blue area? Try to keep your eye on it if you can, because that's where you're going to see changes saved. Changes saved. Remember, the big thing, one of the major reasons we're getting rid of Classic is the autosave. Classic is old. Am I allowed to say that? We're recording this. Oh no, edit that out. Classic is going to go away because it is old development. It's old code. So now we do have that auto save, and you will see that up here in this area. I'll try to point it out as we go. We are on the overview screen for the document. And before I talk about more of this, I want to go back to my slides, and I don't want to scare you, but let's do this first. Okay. I said to you, our developers gave you a lot of ways to do the same thing. So I'm going to show you the 4 ways, 4 different areas for ways you can navigate from section to section, because you are not scrolling, you are not clicking, or you're not necessarily clicking a link to go to the next section of the document. There are different ways you can do this. So let's talk about each one. First, at the very top, you're going to see some headings, and one heading will be the section that you're on. And if that section has subsections, you will see that listed next to it. You can click on the actual word or the triangle, the arrow or the triangle, and it'll give you a list, kind of like a drop-down menu right down here that will let you jump to another area of that section, another section or another area of that same section. So we're going to demonstrate those 2 areas. I'll probably use these a lot today. The other one that I like better, but I don't necessarily use when I'm training, is this number 3 down in the corner. And let me try to move my mouse again so you can see that. Come on, there we go. Okay, so see where it says overview and then it says parent guardian information? I call this our back and next button, but it doesn't say back and next. It says the name of the section. So I'm going to point that out to you because it gets a little weird if you don't put your mouse in the right place. All I mean by that is the name changes, so you got to make sure you're clicking on the name. Well, I'll show you how that works too. And honestly and truthfully, my least favorite area of this entire program is this gray arrow. Can you see it on your screen? I don't know how good your monitors are. There's a gray arrow here that is very much like the task navigation in the Classic system that used to be on this left-hand side of the screen. It's kind of hidden here. We're going to look at it because you might love it. I just don't really like it, but that's just me. Okay, so let's start by also, well, let's do that first before we go crazy. We're on the overview screen, and all I have is a list of all the areas. And you'll notice that I get a status on the right-hand side, which is going to change to edit, complete, and we'll see that change as we go through. All across the top is information from student information, including, again, that name. If I click on that name, you know it's going to go to that student profile. I have my document name here, that cute little pencil that kind of moves, which is kind of funny. If I click on it, I can simply rename that document for whatever I want it to be named. Okay, so that's what that does. I can click here, oops, sorry. I can see that it's priority, and I can click on that and say, nope, it's not priority. Oh, yep, it is priority. And you're gonna see our green messages going crazy over there because it's just telling us what we did. We'll come back to the data collection form. I'm trying to remember. Nope, okay. Data collection form is really great to check your work and also for EMIS purposes. We'll come back to that when we have more to say about it. Here's that print preview button, which is going to be important, not just because you want to print and save that PDF, but it also might be important to you to check how it looks, and we'll do that as well. You're going to see print preview in each and every section. I always forget about additional forms. Sometimes we get cases in from our ITC partners that say, hey, I don't know where this form is. And I have to say, I don't know either. I'm going to tell you, because you are the users who know this better than I do, that anywhere you see an additional forms button, add additional forms, which is on the overview screen of the documents, you may want to click there just to check, is there anything you need? And if I do check that, all I need to do, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and do one. I'm going to check one off, and then I can add it. And it will add it at the bottom of your IEP or whatever your document is. Notice there's a red X here. This is something I added. It is not required. If I don't want it anymore, I can just get rid of it. Okay, so that, remember when we were talking about deleting an entire document, which I'm still going to show you, that would be one way to delete sections that you no longer want. Not these that are required. And again, I'll come back to each of those as we go through them. All right, so additional forms is important. And then there's that delete button. We'll come back to that one too. Lots of things to come back to. Let's go to our cover page. This looks like the screenshot the slide I was just showing you. So we're going to do a couple things here. First, we're going to look at the, well, you'll see. Cover page, again, I can click on any of these and go to that section immediately. I can come back to my cover page. Same thing over here with child's information. In fact, if I go to IEP timelines, look at how this changes down here at the bottom. Now I have the next section, or my next button would be the IEP forms. Next button would be other information. I can keep going back. So back and forth, or I can go back to my overview if I want to. Okay, so lots going on there. Let's talk about this section here. So, nope, I gotta go back. Here's the screen that scares everybody. Don't be afraid of the screen. I just need a checklist for myself. So even if you go back and look at the slides, at least this will remind you of some of the things we talked about. So when there are yes, no questions, sometimes when you click yes, it means something else is happening elsewhere in the form. I want to show that to you. When you click applicable versus not applicable, you get more information you need to fill out. Contacts is going to be for everybody, whether it's a 504, an ETR, an IEP. We're all going to be pulling in contacts the same way from student information, so we will go over that. Measurable annual goals always trips everybody up, so we're going to spend some time there. But that also pertains to anybody who has multiple sections or instances of something, like a prior written notice, parent invitation, assessments in an ETR. Okay, I think that's all I know, but there's others. Adding and deleting a row in a table. Remember the old system? You had a trash can and a plus sign. It's a little different now, but it's a little more intuitive, so I'm hoping you'll like that too. I don't know if we have anybody, and maybe you can put in the chat if there is, preschool to kindergarten transition. So if we have someone, I'll go over that. If we don't, I'm not going to worry about it. We'll see what you say in the chat in a little bit. For those of you doing ETRs and signatures, we're going to try to talk about that as well. We're going to do signatures for everybody, but I want to point something out on the 504. Now, I know that's a lot. Okay, yes, Jessica, I definitely will do it then. Thank you so much for letting me know. As you look at this list, I'm hoping that when we come back to this list, it's going to feel familiar to you. So let's get right into it. And I'm going to just take a sip of water, which I know sounds weird that I'm saying that, but I hate silences. Can you tell? Okay. Interactive or dynamic features. Let's start with a little bit of that pre-K to, preschool to kindergarten transition IEP. This question is the most important question. If I say yes here, it is actually going to change my section 11 and it's going to show this IEP will transition with the child to kindergarten. If I check box this, for those of you doing this particular form, it's going to have a preschool section and a school age section. I have more to say about this section or this kind of IEP, but I wanted you to see that if you're going to use that functionality, you have to say yes right here. Let's go to those of you who deal with children in the 14-year-old range area. If I say yes to either of the next two questions, automatically I will get the post-secondary transition section, section 5. If I say no to these two questions, I will not see section 5, okay? So I always say to you, these 3 questions are really important because they're going to add forms to your document. Let's go on to, I'm going to go to the parent guardian information. Parent guardian information has to do on the cover page with the contacts. So you're going to see immediately, I have a contact in here already. That's because it pulled the primary contact. And if we go to print preview right now, it's going to show just that one contact here on the PDF, okay? I want to add more contacts. And again, I can add up to 4 contacts pulling from student information. So click Modify Contacts. Here's Geraldine Brown. Pay close attention to this dark blue line. This is the important one. She has a star by her name so that I know she's the primary contact. All her information is still down here, but now I can add a new contact. So I'm going to click New Contact. My dark blue line is now under New Contact. Everything for Geraldine is no longer here because I'm actually on a different tab. I'm not looking at her information. I'm looking at my new contact. I can click on Import Contacts, and now I'm going to choose someone else. So let's just choose Tim. All this information is pulling from student information. The only things you can change are if they have an alternate of any one of these items in student information. It's still coming from student information. Let's click on Import. And now I see Tim's information down here. If I click on Geraldine's name, I come back to Geraldine's information. I'm going to do that again because I need to show you a couple more things. Click New Contact, click Import Contacts, put someone in, click Import. One more time, New Contact, Import Contacts. You're like, why is she doing this so many times? Because I have to show you the good stuff. All right, so we did all of that. We see that we are on Jimmy's tab, but we also see that there are now 3 little dots. Any of the names now has 3 little dots. This is going to play a part anywhere you have multiples of something. Multiple goals, like I said, parent invitation, all those things where you have multiples. So contacts is a good place to show it. The 3 little dots gives us more options. Okay, it's called an ellipsis, but I'm going to stick with 3 little dots. 3 little dots: make a copy, rename, move left, move right, delete. I'd say to myself, Jimmy is actually going to move left. Why would I want him to move left? Because I want them to be in this order on the cover page. I say, ooh, Tim Brown. Nope, nope, nope. We're going to delete him. I didn't really mean to put him in here. Delete. Okay, he's gone. We're going to stick with that. Maybe I want Geraldine to be moved right. Okay, so now we have a different order and we have different people. When I go to print preview, I'm going to see Jimmy, Geraldine, and Tommy. And when I exit again, if I were to import a new contact, let's just go with Mildred import, and I go to print preview, Mildred is now in there. Okay, now there is no reason for you to keep going back to print preview. I'm just showing that to you so that you can feel comfortable with what's happening. Okay, so the 3 little dots and reordering, all those are the options you have when you have 3 dots. Okay, we're good with parent information. For the sake of showing you some other things, I am going to put in a meeting date just of today. Obviously, don't follow my practices. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to dates, but you do. Oh, whoops, I want to go to the IEP timelines, and I'm going to still put in today's date. And I will put in today's date for the effective date because I don't like to scroll to find that other date. But now I can say, let me put in the actual IEP effective end date. So I can type over this. You'll notice there's an X here too. I'm going to use it down here. there's an X where I can exit out and type over as well. So the calendar, anywhere you have a date, it works the same way. You have to decide what's best for you. I am certainly not a fan of these little arrows because those are weird, but the down arrow can help you to kind of scroll through and find even different years if you want. Okay, see, I'm not a fan of that either. I like to just pick the date, type over it, and we're good to go. Again, up to you. So we put in the timeline, and I'm going to see if there's other, okay, let's go to other information. Now, I realize that the cover page is showing you different sections, but remember, we could have just clicked down here to go from section to section. What, you know, depends on what you want. I want to demonstrate, though, other information and additional information. Other information is that usual box on the cover page that you always see. Additional information is going to add an entire page to the document after the cover page section, okay? So why do I want to share that with you? Well, pay attention right here, okay? This field is the same whether I am here on the amendments. See how I changed the upper part, but it still has this? If I am on the checklist, the list of documents, here it is. So you're going to say to me, well, what does that do for us? Why do we have that there? If I go to print preview, I can see that the other information has filled in right here. And then anytime I fill in, anytime I fill in additional information for any area, it's going to add a page after that section. If I keep scrolling, I will then see future planning, okay? This is the additional information after the cover page. Let's exit that. And I'm going to say that we're looking good here, so we are going to move on. I do want to talk about section 1, future planning. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to mark this one as completed. Okay, let's go to future planning. All right. Not that I'm going to go into a lot of detail here, but I want to show you how banks will work. And the number one thing I want you to know is that if you have used banks in the classic system, if you're currently using them, if you have them in the current system, they are all going to migrate over for you. Both the district and the personal banks will be in the new system, so you do not have to recreate. But if you want to start using them, or if you want to add new banks, here's how it's going to work. When you click in a field that has the ability to have banks, you will see these two buttons down below the field. You will also see for many fields this rich text editor, which is very similar to what we had in the classic system. So notice that as I'm typing in here, I can do a whole lot more with tables and whatever it may be. Because my district has put in a district bank for me for future planning, I see a gray dot here. Now, you're going to get used to that gray dot being there, but there is a little tool tip when I hover that says district bank items are available, okay? I actually want to copy that district bank item and put it right here in future planning. Here's how I do it. Click on copy from, click on the district tab, because I have two tabs here, personal and district. You're going to see what it looks like. This is what my district would like me to put in future planning. I just made it up. Don't really look at it that way. And I have two options. I can insert it right where my cursor is. Insert. There it is in my student's document that I'm working on, Garrett Brown. I can also choose to copy it and put it anywhere else in the document. I don't know if you'll use that feature, but that's what copy means. It really literally is copy and paste it somewhere else. Insert is going to put it in the field where your cursor is. Okay, so I'm still on the banks area, and I'm going to just click on personal because I could create a new bank right here. I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to close this out because I'm on the banks area, and I can see I'm on the banks area because it's showing me the tabs down below. Let me exit. The bank that I inserted is right here. If I click again in that field, I'm going to click here. And this would work for anybody. And I say, you know what? I really want to make my own bank. Or better yet, let me do it this way. I find that I keep typing the same thing over and over again. Okay, I use the same information in certain fields, and I just have to tweak them slightly. Well, if I want to make a personal bank for myself, I can type it, I can highlight it. Now I'm going to click on the Create button, it's going to take me to my banks. My banks. The only thing I have to do now is put in a name. Okay, you can put any name you want. You can put any kind of initial abbreviation, acronym you want to. I just put that in there because I wanted you to see. You're going to name it, and then you can click on Create. We'll close out of the banks. Now remember, this is not something you're doing every day, creating them. But once you have them created, when you click in a field that has personal banks, you will see a teal, bluish green colored item. And that just tells you that you have personal banks, and you can go back in and you can grab that bank and insert it. So personal banks and district banks. Now, if that is, if you've tuned me out, or if you're saying, yeah, that's too much, just remember that there are videos here about banks under the, on the web help, under the case manager area. There are banks videos that will walk you through that, as well as instructional sheets. Okay, so now that we've done banks in our future planning, I'm going to mark that one as completed. I promise you that I'm not going to go through every single section, but I did want to point out in section 2, if you work with children who are blind or visually impaired, if you say yes in section 2, it will automatically add section 16, children with visual impairments. So section 16 is added based on the question for visually blind or visually impaired in section 2. Okay, that's another dynamic feature that happens. We'll mark that as complete. I don't think I need to worry about the profile, except to tell you that you can make banks here as well. And even extended services, I think we're okay with. We're going to go to measurable annual goals. And we're going to pause for a second and make sure we're okay with questions, concerns, or comments. Okay, we're looking good. All right, measurable annual goals. And honestly, if you're thinking about, I think it's assessments and ETRs, this might pertain to you as well, as far as the functionality is concerned. So measurable annual goals has always been tricky for everybody, always. So this is, it's still some things you got to get used to. I have to, and I'm sorry, I paused because Melissa asked, can you edit the document as a whole page like the current system? I'm going to ask, can you clarify, can you add a little more to that? Because I'm not sure. Do you mean if I looked at the print preview?
Susan, I think she might mean, can you look at all of them at one time? Is that what you meant, Melissa? Like when,
Oh, okay, yes, okay. So that would be, let's go, let me demonstrate that. So what you're gonna end up doing, hope I didn't do that wrong. Okay, so what you're gonna end up doing is, let's go back to my goals. Doesn't matter what section you're in at all, doesn't matter what section you're in. When I click on print preview, it gives me access to everything, but do you see how it just jumped for me? So let me do that one more time, and I promise you, okay, I'm in section 6. I go to print preview, it's going to do a little flashing. It goes from the cover page right to the section I'm in, section 6. Now, I know that doesn't answer your question, but I wanted you to see how easy it is to go from what you're typing to what you want to see on the document. To see the entire document, you just have to scroll up and down and you will see the entire document in the print preview. That is where you will see it. So hopefully, if you need me to clarify that, let me know, but I think that answers the question, I hope. Okay, but we're still typing in this area. We're adding things here. We would just be going to the print preview to see it, and we can definitely scroll up and down as needed. All right, so let's talk about the measurable annual goals and how this works. You notice there's something that says new goal with a dark blue. You'll also notice this new attachment, which that's almost everywhere, kind of almost everywhere in the system, where you can add an attachment to the section. There's also a place where you can add an attachment to the entire document. So if I add an attachment here in one of the sections using this link, it's going to add it at the end of the section. So it would be after my measurable annual goals. If I'm on the overview and I add an attachment using the attachment section down here, it'll add the entire attachment at the end of the entire document that I'm on. Let's go back to measurable annual goals. Okay. So we want to add more than one goal. We're going to do it this way, or at least this is my way. I'm going to start by clicking in, typing a number, typing the area. And what is confusing to me is that this goal still says goal. So let's do a couple things. Let me go ahead, because again, it's up to you. I'm going to click on new goal. Notice where the blue is. I'm going to put a number 2. I'll put reading, and that's going to be good enough for me for right now. And now, sorry, I have 2 goals, but I can't from up here tell the difference. I can click on this one and I see I'm in number 1. I can click on this one and see I'm in number 2. If I just want to organize myself, this is totally up to you. I would go ahead and either double click here to rename it like this, and I can go ahead and name it whatever I want. Or if I'm looking at goal 2, I can use my 3 dots. I can rename, so I don't have to click on it if I don't want to, and I can type in what it is. Okay. This just keeps me organized. It is completely up to you if you want to name these. It is going to print them or show them in the PDF in the order that they are here. So if I take goal 2 and I move it to the left, that's the first one that's going to show up in my print preview. Okay, so that's why we also have these move left, move right, so you can organize the way you want to. I'm going to do a little more with those 3 dots, but let me go over some of the things right here. Present level of academic achievement, etc. We can type something in there, or we can use our bank. I'm going to go ahead and do the district bank because I can. Okay, oops, sorry, insert. All right, so I put the district bank in there. I can obviously put in my goal that I need. As I scroll down, checkboxes are like they were before. Selecting display mode. So remember we had kind of an issue with those benchmarks and objectives. I know they definitely were having problems with the classic system with this. So now you still have the same choice. Am I going to do objectives? Am I going to do benchmarks? You're choosing here, benchmarks, there we go, data mastery, or objectives. I have been told that this now saves. So if I did type a bunch of stuff in benchmarks and then I switched it to objectives, when I switch back to benchmarks, it would show that information. I would probably guess that you definitely want to choose one and just stick with it. But again, that is definitely up to your, you know, how your district and how you do it in your system. Okay. Oh, I'm so glad Kathy's asking that question because you reminded me that I need to do something here. Kathy is asking about the collaboration aspect of this. And because I have 2 logins and 2 screens, I would like to try to demonstrate that to you. And if you hold up a second, I'm going to do that this way. Let's refresh this. So how can multiple people work in the document at the same exact time? I'm going to go back to the screen I was on, and then I'll come back here. Here it is right here. So when I'm in a document, actually, no matter what section I'm on, if someone else is working in the document, you're going to see his or her initials. So if I hover there a little bit, I can see that Paul Masters is working in this document with me. What I don't see up here is what field he might be in. And he will have to, when you get to the field that someone is in, you will actually see a lock. So let me make that work right now. I'm having a little bit difficulty because I have way too many windows open on my other screen. So bear with me as I try this. Okay, we're going to go into my helpful user on the other side is also working on measurable annual goals. And he happens to be in a section where I see him. So did you see what happened on my other user screen? I clicked in a field and it locked the field over here. So this is locked and I can see that it's locked by him, but I can continue to work wherever I want to until he then of course moves out of the section, which is what happened because I have 1 mouse and I moved out of that section. Okay, but you can see that it is definitely there, that it is locking when that person is in the section, okay? Not quite as, how do I say this? Not quite as, that's not smooth, not quite as robust as Google and where you can, you know, see everything that's happening and it's really smooth, but you will see that it's locked and then you aren't going to see, you can't access that until they click off of it. And then you can go in and start clicking in there and do other things, okay? All right, hopefully, let me get back to the chat because I had to close it up there for a second. hopefully that helps out a little bit with that. Okay, so yes, someone can be working anywhere in the document at the same time as you, and you will see that with the little icon here that tells you who's in there. Okay, and yeah, if it's open at the same time with the profile, that as long as whoever's in there first is the one who locks it, and it does kick them out after a bunch of like minutes of inactivity. You know, so if their cursor's just sitting there and you can't get into it, it will go away, or you can tell them to get out of it if they need to. So just keeping that in mind, it's much better than the old system. I don't know if you remember, but you used to have to, well, you in it now, you can lock it, but it's really funky and you have to hover over it. Like I showed you, immediately it's going to just lock it if that person is in there. Okay. All right. So let's move out of there.
There's another question, Susan, in the chat.
And yes, I'm going to say absolutely. In fact, when I do this live with someone who is doing it with me, they start typing and you see it. Okay. So as long as everybody's connected to the internet, yes, not only after they click off of it, but while they're actually in there, you'll see it too. Okay. Good questions. The collaboration part is really working really well. After someone writes on the doc, does it show later who wrote on that section? That it does not do. That it does not do. Good question. So there's another part where it's different from Google. You know, Google, you can look at that whole, what's it called? Version history, but no, here you cannot. Okay, so hopefully you know who has access to your students, and that would be through that My Student screen where you can see the case manager, the service providers, etc. Very good question. All right, we are going to keep going over here, and I'm going to scroll down again. I was on objectives, and the reason I wanted to talk about objectives was really about the table. So no matter where we are, if we have a table with multiple rows, here's how it's going to work to add a row. As soon as I start typing in there, and it actually happens while you're typing, it'll add a new row. So I'm going to type again in the second row, and it's going to add a new row for us. So we see it adding rows, and you'll notice that we can still add banks, we can still use our rich text editor, but it will continue to add rows for me, and I'm just going to put gibberish in this one. It'll continue to add an extra row as many times as I need it to. Now let's go back to the preview because I want to show you on the print preview. Remember, it flashes, and now we're on section 6. Here's my 3 that I added, but that last row does not print out. So it's not going to print any blank rows, but it does have that blank row placeholder right here. Okay. Let's say you want to get rid of a row. I see no trash cans like the old system. To get rid of a row, you're just going to highlight and press delete, and that will remove that row from your table. Okay, so we've gone over tables. We've gone over adding multiple goals. I am going to actually do one more thing here. Okay, so I clicked off my other person who's logged in a guest window, pretend they were somebody else. I got him out of this document, so you'll notice that that icon, that little avatar went away so that we no longer see that person in this document because he's not in the document anymore. Okay, there's one more thing I wanted to do up here, and that was to use the 3 dots to make a copy. So I don't know if this is useful to you or not, but I wanted to show it here in case you see another place you might use it. With the 3 dots, make a copy. It's going to call it copy. And this is a little confusing to me because look where I am. My dark blue line is on my original. If I want to change my second copy, I'm going to want the dark blue line under it so I can make this goal 3 and change whatever I need to change. And I'm probably going to want to change the name as well. And I double clicked, but you can certainly click the rename. Okay, so making a copy, you're going to probably want to change the name. Just make sure you always look for the blue line before you change what's below. Now, these are not in a good order, so I'm going to go ahead and move that one to the right and move that one to the right because I didn't click on it. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Do we have questions about goals? Okay. We are going to go to section 7 briefly, only because it also has tables in it. So we do have the multiple sections, subsections of section 7, and I can click on any of these to get to those different tables. They work the same way as the table I just showed you. As soon as I start clicking and choosing something, it adds a new row for me. In this case, it's not just one single row, it's like the whole section. So you can continue to add services in any of these subsections of section 7. Oh, that's a good question. Let's go back to that. She's asking about the objectives. So here, let me uncomplete that. Notice when I marked it complete, it was gray, so that indicated to me that I was finished, and other people would know that I was finished with it and wouldn't work on it. So you're not going to reorder them here. That's a really good question, and I'm going to take that back to our developers as well. But there is on the progress report, you can reorder, I believe you can reorder those objectives. We'll take a look at that and make sure I'm saying that correctly. Very good question. I will take that back to the developer. Okay, let's go back to. We did a little bit with section 7 already, just showing you again, it looks similar to what it looks like as far as the drop downs are concerned, or where you could actually write in certain fields to add the information. And we have all those different areas. I'm going to go ahead and mark this one as complete just to continue to show you how this works. All right, that was section 7. I'm not going to really worry about 8 or 9 or 10. We did talk about 11 already in terms of the preschool to kindergarten transition, so that was important. Let's go to statewide and district testing, which I believe is also on the 504. Yeah, okay. So anyone who's dealing with statewide and district testing, it's similar. We're looking at it at the IEP section. For statewide and district testing, the first things we're looking at is the AA, the alternate assessment for students with cognitive disabilities. If I say yes to this, not only do I have more information to fill out, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but instead of, and I really just wish they would delete this, instead of you clicking here, it is already going to add that participation criteria at the end of your IEP. And it does have a place for all the signatures here, which are also possibly electronic signatures if your district uses that. Okay. So that was going to be from statewide and district testing. Just saying yes will add that form to the end of the IEP. This is something that was requested, and I can't remember if it was a LACA user or another area of the state, but the suggestion was made that they wanted to record paper, online, or supplemental for test type. I'm going to tell you that right now, this doesn't do much of anything except store it in the database. They are thinking about reports that could come out for this. It does not print on the print preview or the PDF. You won't see this there. And if you do choose to select it, which is completely up to you, if you selected it and you said, "Ugh, I really didn't want to select it," you can go ahead and clear it. So you can leave it blank if you want to. That's what the little clear link is for. But I'm just saying to you, it's really up to you what your practices are going to be. If you're writing the IEP and you decide you want to have this information tracked at a later date, might not be a bad idea to put that in there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and, well, just leave it there. All right, we're gonna go down to the bottom. So that was the alternate assessments, but let's go to the accessibility on district and statewide testing. Now, there is a defect out here on this because I'm gonna click this and you're gonna say, oh, nothing's happening. Honestly, it does happen. And don't make a liar of me. This is the one yes box, or sorry, one yes radio button that is slow. So just be patient with it. It drives me crazy and I hate saying it every time I go into it, but there it is. I clicked yes for accessibility, and you can see the district testing is first. Statewide testing is second. Most of us in the state of Ohio go right to statewide testing. Of course, that's up to you and your district and your practices. You can go ahead and check, and I'll do ELA too. Check the area, unless ELA doesn't want to. Am I still online? Oh, there we go. A little slow. Okay, that wasn't working before because I just did this before we started to make sure it was working. And yeah, Oh, there we go. Wow, I am so sorry for that delay. I don't know if that's me or the internet or the system that I am in, which is a demo system. So anyway, we'll try to get this going. If you check off the area that you would like them to be have accommodations in, of course you have the drop down for the actual title of the test, the state test, and you can put in details of accommodations. I have noticed that some districts do have banks for the detail of accommodations, so you'll notice that those options are there as well, whether you want to use a district bank or create your personal bank. And by the way, I know I said that they come over from the other system. Remember that it's up to your district whether banks are turned on or off. So that is a district decision. It's an option that we have in the system, but you may or may not use them. Depends on your district. All right, so we filled in that. I'm just going to mark it as complete. And we are going to go to exemptions. Oh, I almost forgot exemptions. Exemptions looks a little scary because there's not much here, but remember that there are 3 subsections. So if we're going to go with 3rd grade and we say applicable, then you got all that 3rd grade information that you need to fill in. If you say not applicable, then obviously there's nothing here. You can go right to the graduation tests by clicking on the next button. When we say applicable here, now we have that table to add things to. Keep in mind that you do want to answer this yes or no question. That does have to do with EMIS reporting for those records. So you would be answering yes or no based on your answer to that question. And we can go ahead and put in math, and we can say it was algebra, that is the course title, and whatever our justification is. Okay, and we can continue to add, if there are others that need to be added, we can continue to add them as we go. Okay, so that is the exemption section. Certainly if you had other assessments, you can do that as well. It adds the same kind of table down here. We're gonna mark that as completed. Okay, let us move to, I'm gonna go with signatures, mostly because, oh, nope, yeah, let's go to signatures. 504 signatures are similar, so are your ETR signatures. I really want to just point out the same things you've seen in any IEP, because this is required by ODE. The consent information, it's a radio button. So you would obviously want to select one of those radio buttons, and you'll notice that there are different sections. So I am doing an initial IEP, but there are different sections here. You can still use your next button to continue to go from section to section, or you can go up here and click on it. We will briefly talk about the, well, there is a clear button. So remember, anytime you have a clear button, you can always clear it. The e-signatures here, the traditional e-signatures, were never about sending it in an email. So I'm not talking about that part yet. But if you wanted to do an e-signature, if your district enables it and the person is with you in the office in using your laptop, computer, tablet, whatever it may be, it's as simple as reading all this legalese, clicking on continue, and using your mouse or your finger, Lord, that's awful. You can clear it, you can do whatever, you can confirm it. It is now there. When I go to print preview, it's going to flash again. It goes from cover page to the section I'm on, and there is the signature. That is one way to do electronic signatures with the person being in the room with you, near you. And I know that's not the way we're doing it now, but I just wanted to make sure you saw how those e-signatures work for hopefully for the future. Okay, so there was one other section that I really wanted to talk about, is the special education event section. Your EMIS person will thank you if you can please fill this in and make sure you know what you need to fill in, but trying to make sure that you remember to fill this section in. It's going to automatically put in the date. It's going to automatically decide if secondary planning is necessary based on the age of the student. So then we just have to fill in the outcome ID, the non-compliance ID, and again, preschool to K transition. You are only putting in one outcome ID and one non-compliance ID. I'm going to refer you to ODE for how that is all working, because they just recently came out with the EMIS information. So talk to your EMIS coordinator, but it's going to be one outcome ID and one non-compliance for that preschool to K transition IEP. And of course, we have the test type. Whatever else applies, you will fill in. And I'm sorry, I scrolled too fast there. That's all in the special education events section. Okay, now we are going to jump back to my slides just to kind of say, we've talked a lot about the cover page for the IEP. Yes, no questions, how they affect things like the legally blind, vision impaired, statewide and district testing, how that changes, exemptions. We've imported contacts from student information, added up to 4 and put them in the order we wanted. We did our measurable annual goals and put those in the order we wanted by goals. Going back to the team with objectives, I will let them know that's an interest and sounds like a good one. Adding and deleting rows and tables is as simple as just typing adds a row for you. It just adds a blank one. Deleting, you just get the information out and it will go away. Doesn't print out for you. And then that checkbox is important in that for section 11 for the least restrictive environment. Now, with the ETR, there are 2 planning forms based on school age versus preschool age. I forget what it's called, but the 2 planning forms, once you answer the question, which one, it'll put the correct planning form. And then with the signatures for the 504, it's just really important that when you're looking at the signatures for the 504, you pay attention to those radio buttons to make sure that they agree before they sign what it's going to be. So as we're talking about signatures, I want you to consider that sending a document through email, like you may be able to do next week when we upgrade to 19.6, is not in place of a meeting, as you know. You're still having that video meeting, that phone meeting, whatever it is. So I am guessing that you're going to fill these out for the parent, and then you're going to send the PDF through what's called the collaboration portal. Don't worry about that right now because that's like step 25 before we get other things done. All right, so now that I've done all this, I really want to go back to my overview. I can go here to the overview. I can click on the title of the document and go to the overview. If I come in the next day and want to get going on this, I would find the document by clicking on the name in the dashboard, my students, the student profile, anywhere I can click on the name, it's going to take me here. And then I can quickly see, well, what have I completed? What do I still have to start? What do I have to edit? I can see all of that. And I like this little indicator here because once this says 100%, that's when you're going to see a complete button up here for the entire document. Now we're going to go there and with another document if I can find one, which I will. I'll find one that we can follow through with all of that. I want to look at the DCF, the data collection form, and it is only found in here, this part, on the overview screen. So if I click on the DCF, it's going to take me to a separate document. This is not part of the IEP. Some people use this for their own check. Just let me check that I make sure I filled in what I needed to fill in. Some people use this to print and hand to their EMIS coordinator, okay? If your district is using the EMIS extract, which you don't need to worry about, but if they are using the EMIS extract, then it's even more important that you double check this. And by double checking it, I'm just going to say quickly, I did an IEP. I am making sure that everything that is not grayed out is filled in. So I look good there. I filled everything in. Of course, I'd want to double check my dates. Are they good? Yes, they're good. My services section, I didn't put dates in. So that is going to bring back an error. I would want to, before I complete this, go back in and put my dates, okay? And I know we had some questions earlier about why can't these populate. I'm going to tell you that our research has shown 50-50, populate, don't populate. I'm an advocate of populate them from the cover page, and I keep saying that, but sometimes I'm overruled. Just a trainer, not a developer. Okay, so that section, I would want to do my dates. You can see that I have my IEP test type. You can see that if I had secondary planning, it would be listed here, and you can see those exemptions. So to me, this is a quick shot to just kind of see what's important, what is going to be reported to EMIS, do I have everything, am I good to go? Whether you print that, whether you turn it into a PDF and email it to your EMIS coordinator, whatever it may be in your school, your process, it's just one of those places that you can check. All right, I'm going to exit the preview and go back here. We are going to talk briefly about, just go next. All right, so I mentioned that we're going to see a mark is completed when everything is completed. This button is also going to take you to the collaboration portal, which I'm just going to mention briefly. And then We've talked a lot about print preview. Remember that print preview is not the last button you want to click. It really will help you to see how things are ordered, what it looks like, and you'll get used to what you want your process to be. I just can't stress enough that when I'm in a section, no matter what section it is, if I click on print preview, it just does a quick little flash and takes me to that section. And I can always scroll through. Remember we said the draft watermark is here? Here it is. So I can still have my draft watermark. I'm going to emphasize to you that if you're only printing out certain pages, you're going to do that through your browser with your print dialog box. And everybody's browser is a little bit different, but you can print individual pages or just a few pages based on that print dialog box. All right. Let's stop for a second. I'm going to go back a couple screens here. And you tell me if there's something I missed or if there's something you need me to look at again before we go on to the other screens in the system. Okay, now one good thing, and I forgot to say this, we've now been on the call for an hour and a half. Is that right? Oh, you poor people. Look away from your screens. You know, they say every 20 minutes, look 20 feet away for 20 seconds just to give your eyes a break. So hopefully you've been doing that. All right, we are going to go on, and don't hesitate to put questions in. Even if you think of another question, we will make sure that we answer everything we possibly can. We're going to talk about the dashboard and student documents. So I'm just going to show you the screenshots to kind of remind you that this is what the dashboard looks like. We're going to talk about all of these widgets in just a second. And we're going to talk about the student documents, which is where you're going to find the recycle bin. So let's just do it. As we look, I'm going to exit my preview. And I'm going to go back to my hamburger menu to see my options. We'll start with the dashboard. So the dashboard is now showing me only the students who are on my caseload or who I am attached to on the My Student screen. They're showing me those documents. Right now, I have it set up to only show me open. Let me see if I can clear there. I'm going to clear everything and pretend we're going to go into it as if you would see it. So you would see a ton of things. You can set this up to look the way you want to. Let's start at the top though. The widgets that are across the top, I'm just going to tell you, I'm not a fan of reports, although I think that'll become more robust next year, where you might be getting like lists of your students and when things are due. Look for that a little bit later, and you can see that in our release notes or by talking to Annie, because she will keep you updated as things come out. So we're not going to worry about that today. Recently created documents, I'm going to be honest with you, I forget this is here. But this is awesome because I don't have to search for any kid. If I started this document, I come in the next day, I open to this screen, all I need to do is click on the document right here and it'll take me to that document. This area will show you the last 3 documents you created, not that you worked on, the last 3 documents you created. So nice little shortcut. Forget the caseload. Caseload due dates is really about your administrator. Your administrator will see a screen similar to this, let's do it this way, that shows each person and their caseload. Since I'm a case manager, I can only see my information here. I cannot see other caseload information. So I kind of ignore this as an intervention specialist. As a case manager, I ignore this one. But I do like this one because I can quickly click on these links, these numbers, the 4, the 3, the 0, well, not the zeros, but as I click on those, it's immediately going to show me only the documents due in that time period. So these are preset, and I can quickly click on those just to see what's due, okay? I can also click on view all documents at any time. So this will always do what I just did. It's always going to do that regardless of what you save in your settings. Let's talk about down here. The only thing the checkbox does here is mark it as priority. That's this screen, okay? Obviously new document, we talked about that before. I can again click on a student name to go to the student profile, click on the document to see the document. I can also reorder any of these headings. Those are all clickable to sort, okay? Let's go here for a second, the gear. The gear is probably, again, one of my favorite things because I can decide how I want things to look. I want to see the status. It added a status column. I don't really care about progress. It took away the progress column. I want to see the case manager. Well, yeah, maybe, maybe not. You'll see that there are unassigned ones because those are things we pulled in from, they're actually fake documents, and we never had anyone connected to these students prior to this. So they're not on my caseload. They're not assigned to anybody. You probably will see unassigned students depending on what documents have been created for them. Okay, so I'm going to actually get rid of that one. Date of birth, maybe it's important to you, maybe it's not, but you are choosing these. And as soon as you choose them, it's saved. I can come in here at any time and change them. But once I've done this, every time I log out, come back in, come to this screen, it's always going to do whatever it's going to show whatever I saved, whatever I selected, automatically saved. Okay, let's do one more thing. I'm going to go in order by alphabetical order. Whatever your order is completely up to you. But if I always want it to be alphabetical order, I want it to be saved, then I'm going to click here where it says use current sorting order. You're also going to see there's a use current filters. Let's do that one too. And but let's do sorting one more time. Notice that that check comes and it goes. Just know that the last time you checked it is what's saved. That's what's saved. So I'm alphabetical order by student. I say to myself, you know what, I really just want to go alphabetical by document, or I want to see their status. And I'm just playing with this, or I'm just trying to locate something. I need to look at it in a different order. As soon as I go back out or come back in, let's do it this way. Wah, wah. It goes back to what I had saved before. And actually, that did not do alphabetical order because why? I lied to you. Okay, we'll do this. I should have done my sorting. I should have done my filters first. I apologize. Let's do it again. Filters. If I want to save my filters, I can do it by clicking on the filter option here. It's either going to show me what the filters are, or if I don't want to see all that, I just click on it again and the filters go away. So I like to see just IEPs. I like to see just, if I clear it, it's going to show me everything. If I just want to see ETRs, I can see just ETRs for my students. Remember, this is just my students. If I want to see, again, I want to see everything, I can just clear it. So you have options here for what you're going to see to save or just to look at it today. Status. Let's talk about these three statuses. Open and completed, I hope, are obvious. Open, completed. In review is a temporary state. It's temporary status if you are using the collaboration portal for email signatures. So that's why that one's here now. We'll come back to that. Due dates. These are very similar to what you see up here. So it's up to you if you want to use that. And if I want to save this, I'm going to click on use current filters and save that. I click on service filter sorting as well. All right. So now that's saved and I can continue to do what I need to do, but when I log out and log back in, it should also remain. I am going to check on that sorting because it's bothering me that it didn't work. All right. Hopefully that's enough about the dashboard. And if I can be really honest with you, don't feel this, to me, I'm not a big fan of it. Yeah, definitely going to show you the progress report, Melissa. I'm so glad you said that. So the dashboard is here. Student documents is similar in that with the student documents, you can still change your filter and your settings, same thing. There's one extra column here called event date. I'm going to add that to it. And the event date also has a filter available. Remember that event date is the meeting date. So if you don't like that arbitrary due date, you could come to your student document screen and do some filtering and sorting based on event date. So that's a new option that we have here. The difference on the student document screen is that when I do a checkbox, I now have the option to delete it. So I'm actually going to delete a different one if you don't mind. Let's do this one. I can obviously select more than one. If I want to delete this, I can check it, click delete. It's going to say, are you sure? So you're not going to accidentally delete because you do have to read that dialog box with the red button that says, are you sure? When I click now, it's gone here. If I click on my recycle bin, I will see it here. And you're going to actually see, what I like about this is it does tell me who deleted it. So if an administrator deletes it, if someone else deletes it, you were working on it, it's going to show who that person is, okay? Let's say it was an accident. There is a restore button here, and you can restore it so it's no longer in the recycle bin, and it is back on my documents, okay? Let me just do the small print. Pretend like there's a little asterisk with tiny, tiny print. I was told early on that things would stay in the recycle bin for 30 days. That's what I was told. At this time, it stays in here for the entire school year. I don't know if that's going to change or not. No one will give me an answer, and I've asked 1,000 times. So, you know, I'm that kid in school, in your classroom, who asks the same question over and over again. So I don't know if that's going to change. I'm just going to tell you, maybe keep in the back of your mind that 30 days is a good number, but at the moment it stays there for the entire school year.
Okay, we have, Susan, sorry. We have a question from Diantha asking, can you do due date oldest to newest? On
Yes. Yes. So here we go. Just so you can see it. Any of these headings can be reordered. So that would be on the student document screen and on the dashboard. I can reorder them. Okay. And then I do want to tell you though, you can't do it here on the student document. I'm sorry, the My Student screen. It only has it alphabetical by student name, but you can reorder it on these two screens. Good question. All right, now I know we want to talk about progress reports, and I also want to talk about document import. So don't let me rush too much. Okay, let's come back to print students. Let's go into, I'm going to try to pick one that's almost done. Mark Armstrong, he looks like he's 100% progress. Is he still an open document? Let's check. Let's check. Oh, come, my darling. Okay, we're going to go another. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is a good place to talk about copying from another document, but I wanted to show it to you first. I wanted to make sure it was a good one to use. Notice that it says 100% complete over here, but I haven't completed it. It's still in an open status. So without going crazy, I'm going to click on this complete button, because if, oh shoot, now it did it, didn't it? Oh, I know why. Sorry, Annie, I messed up. I don't have the collaboration portal turned on here, so now I did complete it. Darn it. Okay, but we can do this because I do want to show you. When you complete a document, and whether you put it in review or you complete a document, there is sometimes an hourglass that is here. That hourglass just means that there's a service running behind the scenes, all that fancy stuff that happens behind the scenes that is completing that document and putting it into the vault. Okay, but we can still use that one. Let's go this way. I'm going to click on Mark Armstrong, special education. We're going to go new document. His name's already in context. Let's go to the progress report. And Melissa, I'm going to ask, do you want the one we normally use, which would be the OP6A? And Annie, I always forget what it was called. Goals, objectives by date?
Yes, that was the goals and objective by date. That's the newest okay. Old one, or newest okay. OP6A, the latest.
So I'm going to use that one. Okay, that's the one I want to create. Okay, and so you can see the 6B is about oh gosh, now I just lost my train of thought. What was that one about? That's about post-second. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and then the combination and the web. So we're going to stick with 6A. You want to see this, so I'm going to quickly go ahead and put a date here. And instead of making it from scratch, I'm going to go from the completed IEP. If it were still open, it would be listed here as an open IEP, and I can select any document. So back to a 504 created last year, I want to reuse some of that information. Absolutely. IEP created last year, I'm going to reuse that information. Here's just the one gotcha for those of you transitioning from the classic to new. If you were using different progress reports, you won't be able to CFE from a past progress report that's no longer in the system, but you could make a new progress report in the new system from an old IEP in the old system. Oh my gosh, forget that I just said all of that. We'll make it clearer at another time. Okay, let's do it. Let's go ahead and create it because you want to see what it looks like. New document, Clicking on the OP6A, notice it's pulled in 3 goals that I made earlier. This is not really well developed. This is something I used for a different training, but so you can see it. Goal 1, goal 2, goal 3, kind of similar to what I showed you today for Garrett Brown. We've got the goal area. Here's where you can reorder the objectives. Okay, so no, they're not reordered on the original, but I could even add a new objective, fill that out, and then I can even still do that whole renaming thing. So I can click here, I can rename, I'm gonna call this 1A, and then I can go ahead and move left. And maybe I really want it to move left again. Okay, so I know you wanted to see this, so I wanted to show you the functionality, but let's go to the print preview. So hopefully this looks familiar to you. This is what it looks like when you do the print preview. Goal 2, etc. All right, did that answer that question?
Susan, I did have a question from another user that's
Sure.
not on the call.
Mm-hmm.
If I can ask that since you're in this part. So
Absolutely, go
when
for
you
it.
create from, well, when you create a progress report, does that automatically put your goals and objectives in there from the IEP, or only if you create from the IEP?
Oh, it's create from the IEP.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's how it was working. I don't know where I thought maybe it was somebody asked that for an enhancement. I just thought I remembered that from someplace, but
Yeah,
that
no,
makes sense. That
yeah,
makes sense. Okay.
so because you can, I mean, I don't know the actual order, but you can create the progress report from any of the documents previously created. So I guess that's just the choice, that's how we have it in the system.
And that's okay. I just wanted to be sure and it must have been somebody asking for an enhancement on that. So
Okay.
that just,
Okay.
and I don't know, you would probably want to, like you said, if you can create from other documents, then
Yeah.
you would want that not to just automatic populate.
True. So yeah, and obviously if it's an enhancement request, our team will look at it and see, if it's feasible or what users want across the board. So good question. Very good question.
Thank you.
Okay, so I lost a little bit of my train of thought only because I got out of sync. It's my own fault. I am going to jump back into, and please keep asking those questions. I'm going to jump back into the slides because I've shown you how to print an IEP. We've talked about printing individual pages of an IEP, making a PDF if you wanted to. Remember, the system makes a PDF when you complete it. But I'm saying if you wanted to, make that PDF or download it as a PDF to email, you can do that as well. And the other thing I was going to say is we in the current system or the classic system, remember that class print where you can print multiple documents? It is here as well. It's on the My Student screen, and we're going to walk through it here. I just want to show you that it's a little bit different, and it has to do with these 2 tabs, Create and History. So let's go right into it and go from there. It's the My Students screen, the option to print student documents, and we got Create and we've got History. Now I have no history here because I haven't done it yet, but that tab is still going to be important to us. You're creating a print job. So the Create part is choosing, first of all, which document. Do I want to print completed IEP summaries? So remember, this would only be for students who have completed IEP summaries, and this one would be for open progress reports. I'm going to go with IEP summaries. The key here is it's only going to show me, I will only be able to find students who have these documents. So this gets a little confusing for me because I don't know which kids have which documents because I just throw a bunch of stuff in here. I'm going to go with IEP summary. We'll go with students, click on students. And this is where I'm going to start searching for students. Honestly, at this time, it doesn't even matter if they're on your caseload or not. I don't know if that's going to change or not. So here's my Garrett Brown that I was working on. No student found because I didn't complete that IEP. So he is not available to print the IEP summary because he doesn't have one. Let me see if I can find one more. Okay, there we go. So you choose the students who you're going to print. This checkbox, all it does is limit your search to students on your caseload. So at the moment, I would not even bother with that. Just search for your students. Here's my 3 that I want to print an IEP summary for. We're going to create. It automatically goes to the history tab. And you'll notice it says requested. So I'm going to leave this screen and let it do its thing. My system is a little slow because it's preview. Remember, it doesn't work as well as a live system. That's why I've had some glitches today. There is a refresh button if I'm one of those people that just wants to click and click and click until it's ready. There is a place to delete the job. The document count has to do with the number of documents you are printing. So just keep that in mind. I did pick 3 students. They each have 1 IEP summary, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Eventually, and we're going to come back to it, at least I hope, before 11:30, this will have a little number when it's ready. It'll probably say number 1. If I had more jobs in there, it'll tell me how many jobs are ready. So I don't have to constantly be on that screen to see the print job. I just need to kind of come back when it's ready and click on it and then go ahead and print it out. So I'll come back to that a little bit later, but that is to print multiple IEP summaries or multiple open progress reports. So those are the 2 things that we, I believe, were able to do in the previous system, and so you can do that here as well. Okay, now I promised that we were going to go over the what's going to happen with CTEC and how they get their documents from their home schools. So before I do that, I want to double check, because I don't want people to feel they have to stay on if they don't want to see it. Although this will be about transferring students as well. If you share a student with another school, if they're transferring into your district, I'm going to show you a little bit about how that's going to work, because the last time I presented, I didn't talk about it all, and I've never fully answered this question. So I want to make sure we talk about it. I'm going to remind you before we do that, that there is the 2 helps, the one for this year, the one for next school year. Please feel free to check that, because there will be information there for you that you can start looking at now if you want to. You will get a certificate for just being here today for 2 hours, so I will send that to you via email. And the one more thing I want to do is talk to you, those of you who are saying, yeah, I kind of want to see document import, but hey, I really want to get into the system and play with it. So there is a website that is a demo website. I am going to put this on the screen right now. And you're going to see people's names from other districts in LACA. What I'm going to do, if you are a Google school, you'll understand, but if you are not, you can either copy and paste the link that is in the chat, or you can go ahead and click on it. It should take you to this document that I have on my screen. What this document is showing you is the available individual IDs that you can use to log into our demo system like I did today. The demo site is right here. You're going to go ahead and claim a username by just putting your name, and then you will enter the domain, the username, and the password. This isn't at all secure because the passwords are all the same. But keep in mind that this is all fake data in here. We have a wonderful person at our office who makes sure that we have all completely fake data for us. I'm scrolling down on this screen in case you want to see. There are plenty of open IDs that you can use. The only thing I want to say to you is the current system is on 19.5.2, so it may not do quite everything that we had done today, but it's real close, really close. And you can just claim one of these and just realize that there are other people sharing these IDs. So feel free to use one, jump in, play with it. You can't hurt it. And if you notice, it says this site is refreshed each weekend. Every time we put something in here, we just wipe it out on Friday. So play with it if you'd like to. Ask questions if you'd like to about that. But I want to go in and I'm going to actually log out here. And I am going to sign in as a master user. So this is like your administrator. Okay, so this is not necessarily going to be your ability, but I want to show you a couple things. Okay, and hopefully cross your fingers. I have a video. If this doesn't work, I have a video, but I tried to set it up this morning to work. An administrator role has access to something called settings. In the settings tab, you'll see an option called document import. as long as, let me say this like 3 times, as long as the shared student or the transfer student is in both student informations with the same student ID, state student ID. It's going to match on state student ID. I have my student at my high school, and they're also going to the Career Tech Center, and they have the same student IDs in both buildings, both school districts, okay? As long as that happens, here's what an administrator can do. They will go to the Search Students tab. They will type the student's name in, and it's going to not really look that exciting because we don't have a message here that says that documents are available. I'm going to go ahead and click on the button that says Import Documents. Let me back up. If this child did not have documents, it would say no documents, but it doesn't say how many documents are available. I'm going to go ahead and click on Import Documents. It's going to say to me eventually, I hope, there you go, 2 documents were imported successfully. I want to really show you what that looks like. So let me go to Lori Abbott. Remember, she was already in my district, and she was already in the other district. When I go to her special education forms, I now see, and let's just make sure I got the right one. I see, okay, that's not the one I wanted. Let me go back one more time. All right, do you see right here where it says SA Training 4? That's my school district name. Notice that I am logged into SA Training 2. So all I'm wanting to get across to you is the fact that this document was created by another school district. The student is shared, and so I can pull that document into the system where she goes. Both schools can have it. But notice that just like the previous system, it is a completed document. We're not sharing open documents between districts. We are only sharing completed documents. Okay, Annie, I'm going to let you chime in. Is there anything that I need to talk about with that?
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody has any questions. Did you say it comes from student information of documents that are pulled in through?
So the let's pretend it's next year, or it's August, and we have both districts are in new SPS. Okay, because remember, classic SPS does it too, but a little bit differently. Okay, if both districts are on new special services, and I would like to have the completed documents shared with the other school district, it'll pull over based on the student ID. It's the state student ID.
Okay.
State student
okay.
ID. Yep.
Okay, got you.
Good. We're
So
good.
I am good. Thank
Okay.
you.
And I'm not even sure. I forgot to check who's on the call, but I know we had quite a few people from CTEC, and I just wanted to make sure they saw that this is possible. And let me just say this too. Once you have that IEP from the other district in your system that you have access to, then you can do the copy from the IEP to make your progress report, or copy from another progress report in the school district to your progress report. Make sense?
So it comes over as a completed document, and it would be, someone had asked me this, so that's good. Show me that again. So
Okay.
does it go, sorry, this was a
okay.
question. So when it's imported,
Yep.
it goes to the completed documents for the students.
Yes, and I'm going to go, and I'm sorry, Lori had other documents because someone else was in the system putting documents in, and I'm sorry, I thought she didn't have any. But you'll see she has open documents because we've used her before. But when I go down here to the completed, I'm going to use this one because it's from today. So yes, there was one from this school district as well. Pretend that's not there, okay? Just pretend that's not there. This one, if I click on it, it should say SA Training 4 in the corner, I hope.
Okay.
Yeah, SA Training 4 is let's just pretend that's the homeschool.
Okay.
But I'm in the Career Tech Center.
Okay. So then they would do from that document, like you said, copy and paste. If they were doing a TIEP, they're going to transfer it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
and at least they'll have access to it. So again, it's between the districts, but that is the way the document import works. I can only stress to you though that it is an administrator, a certain security privilege that has that. So it's not what we were doing today. A regular case manager cannot do that. Just making sure we all know, okay?
Okay, so okay, Shirley does have a question. And this is probably one that, so the SSID, Shirley, we pull in to the home districts and then you get them from the home districts because you have SSIDs in your system, correct? That we'll have to take a look at that since she's a career tech.
Okay. And you see, Annie, it all flows from student information.
Yes,
That's what's
I'll let you know about that, Shirley. Since you are a career tech, I know we don't import them. Somebody puts them in your system. So I'll take a look at that, but you should have SSIDs in there.
Yeah, they will definitely have those in there. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second because let's try this one. Okay. Depending again on your district, if they turn on that collaboration portal, and again, I have shown this to no one. I just learned this yesterday. So I don't want to go crazy with this, but when the next release is put onto LACA's production sites, when you see it in the system, it is going to walk you through sending it through an email to something called the collaboration portal. So we talked about signing things through Zoom with a parent being online with you, parent or guardian being online with you, and possibly using some of the controls in Zoom to do that. There is, let's see if it's here yet. There might be. Not yet. Okay. Eventually you will see some documentation and a video here that talks about how to do it. So I'm not going to go crazy with that right now because you are the first people in the state that I even mentioned it to. But it was something that I said before, and it is something that is an option. When you click complete, you either just complete it or you can keep going and you can send it to email recipients. So there's a lot of security involved with this. And again, only certain roles can do that. So Annie, we're talking about that more tomorrow with everyone, but I just wanted to mention it because they will be seeing it soon. Okay, are there other questions, concerns, comments? Do you need any help with anything? We are over our time. I am so sorry.
No, there's just another question from Shirley, which is private, which I can save that and answer her question on that.
Sure,
I know you're over, but I don't know if anybody's interested in seeing how the students will be assigned if they don't allow self-assigned for the intervention specialist or case manager.
Sure. So let me do this real quick. So remember that if you're a case manager and your school says we're going to assign students to you, you'll automatically come in and see all your students once they do that. If you are an administrator, this is the other link, because now I'm signed in as an administrator. You see the case management option. And so the case manager can create a new caseload right here by searching. And then they can actually, they're the lucky ones. They can say, oh, just show me elementary students. Just show me grade 3. Just show me students who are MD. I don't have any. Show me SLI. Nope, I don't have any of those either. What do we have? Oh goodness, I have nothing in this system. I know I had some. Okay, but they can easily assign students to all of their intervention specialists if they want to. This is how they would do it. And once they do that, it would automatically appear on the My Students for anybody who has those students, the caseload. So I don't know how your district's going to do it. This kind of puts a little more of the burden on the administrator or the admin assistant. But if they want that kind of security, then they can absolutely do it.
They can also change the name there by clicking on the pencil.
Yep.
I just know that a lot of folks, like that to be a certain way by how they
Yes.
want those named. So
Yes,
um,
absolutely.
the question from Shirley was on the collaboration portal, does that allow, say she's the JVS, does that allow Newark City schools to see text document and information, like to put in a speech goal if they,
No.
or electronic signatures, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And
Okay.
it's going to be for documents. So surely that's a really interesting question. When a document is in the review status, it goes to the portal for signatures. When it comes back, it's automatically completed. So you wouldn't want someone to make changes. They won't be able to, but you wouldn't want them to make a note that says change this, because when it comes back, you don't have an opportunity to open it again and do anything to it. It's really only about electronic signatures. And once you see this, there's actually, there is some documentation on this. It will be listed here on Web Help, hopefully today. And there will be a video created about that too. It's not, the word collaboration for portal kind of aggravates me a little bit because it's really a signing portal. It's more for the parents or anyone else who has to sign it. Good question. Okay, now we have recorded. I'm actually going to stop the recording so we can start processing. I will be sharing that recording with Annie, who will be able to send that to you as when it's ready, when I get it to her, obviously. So let me stop the recording and thank you all. But we are still